Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, confident speaking community, depending on where you are in the world. I hope you are ready to go, ready to get into this conversation today as we continue becoming more confident and effective communicators in every aspect of our lives, and that we are equipped for any environment, no matter where it is we may be. We have the capacity and we understand that we more than have the ability to be profound when we show up, to be comfortable enough to be uncomfortable because you've put in the work. We've done practice. We've taken the time and committed ourselves to being better so that when we show up, when we open our mouths, we have the ability to shine. And if we don't have what we need, we understand how to go get it and figure it out and continue to learn and grow because that's how we're going to maximize who it is that we are and the opportunities that sometimes are simply waiting on us to just show up and be available so that when it's time, we're there and we're ready for it. And I want the best for each and every one of you in your life in every aspect. And that's why we hold these spaces. That's why we have this community so that we can continue striving to be better. And sure, sometimes it's fun being in spaces, having conversations, talking about what happened over the last weekend and the game and all those other things. But for me, my focus is trying to be better, is trying to grow and improve. So thank you again for being here. And I hope that everyone is having a fantastic day again so far. And what we'll do is I want to go ahead and say hello to Mama B before we get into the conversation. Mama B, how are you today? I'm not sure if it's just me.
Tim, hi. I think she's got some network issues. She just moved to this house.
Okay, there we go. Yep, it appears so.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll work on that. So we'll say hello to Brenda. So Brenda, how are you today while we get things situated with Mama B?
Pardon me, you guys. Pardon me. My word. Good morning. Thank you, Tim, for the honor. And hello to the room. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Absolutely. You are absolutely welcome. And thank you for being here. Thank you for co-hosting with us. And let's see, we'll take a moment and see if this gets cleared up with Mama B before we jump into this. And as we wait, what I want to do, I want to ask everyone, because I issued a challenge to us all a few weeks ago, maybe what was back in January, and it was the generosity challenge. And I challenged all of us to find at least one person a month or however many you wanted to do, but at least four people throughout the course of 2025 and show some generosity and kindness to them in whatever way you felt led in your heart to show them, no matter what that was, but some form of generosity that you share with someone. And I'm not trying to put people on the spot, but I am curious if anyone has thought about that and actually taken steps to do that. If you want to give me some hearts to show that you are still at least thinking about it, because you have time, but anyone actually done it? So I hope so, because I can assure you that when we make a decision to live our lives as kind and generous people, you will be blessed. You will get that back. And remember, I told you that there's a great and wise book that says that those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And it may not come back the same way that you give it to someone else, but you will get it back. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to make a note for myself to make sure that I don't forget to check in from time to time so that you don't forget, because we want to make that a part of who we are, to be generous to people. And when it becomes just part of our character, it's easier. And we begin to look for those opportunities to be kind and generous with people. Brenda, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. And pardon me, Grace. For me, I'm on a different playing field. I want to be generous all the time and not have to be looking. But this is how we come into practice. I promise you guys, when I first started working as a CNA, I was not patient. And then I had children, and then life went on and on and on. And it took a long time to get where I am today. So what I've done, Tim, is not only am I practicing generosity each day, but I'm not really keeping tabs of it. So that's true generosity. And what I've done also is this year, I've decided to do something new each month. In January, I don't want to tell you guys, because at the end of the month, I'm going to tell you guys. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, Tim. So yes, I've started.
Absolutely. And keep in mind now, this isn't simply for us to keep tabs and records and to be able to say, oh, I helped someone and I did something for someone. This is about establishing the behavior so that it becomes a part of who we are. And there are times we need this type of incentive, this type of encouragement to get us thinking about doing things like that because it isn't a part of our natural behavior. So that's what this is. It isn't to show off, to be able to say, I did more than someone else did. That isn't it. It's just to establish the behavior. Mama B, let's see if Mama B is back with us.
Let's see if
There
it's
she
gonna
is.
work. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The devil is a liar. Yeah. So I'm here and I couldn't say anything because I didn't have the microphone to unmute or anything. It was a request microphone, and there I am sitting as a co-host, and you're calling me and I couldn't talk. But anyway, we are here now. Everyone, welcome to Confident Speaking. I almost said Intuitive Parenting, but no, it's Confident Speaking on a Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And thank you, Tim. I am feeling fabulous today. I'm feeling fabulous. And I missed what you said we should talk about, but here I am, just at your service, sir, and everybody. I'm done. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mama B. Glad you made it. Glad we got that situated. And everyone, always remember there are going to be times where we have challenges. There are going to be some technical difficulties that we just cannot control. So I encourage you to use these moments to work on maintaining your composure so that you don't become frustrated, agitated, aggravated, and lose your ability to process what the next step is. Because you have to make a decision. So don't get stuck focusing on what's going wrong. Focus on what you need to do to fix it. And these are great opportunities to do that. Don't get frantic. Don't get frazzled. Just think through it, figure it out, and make the next step so that you can keep going forward. And what we'll do is great if let's see here. Grace, you can go ahead and say hello to everyone. Just a quick hello to people, and then we're gonna get started.
Yeah, this is just a quick hello to remind people to repost. This is one of the best spaces to learn how to be concise. Mama B, good to hear your voice. We're talking about that challenge Tim said about generosity. And I think everybody in the room has a generous spirit. They want to learn how to share what's in their heart. So it's about taking it up a notch, right, Brenda? And I said yes to a co-host one day, which turned into a 3-day marathon. And I had to say, this is not a lot of people had asked me. So, that opened up a door to so many opportunities just because I said yes on a higher level. That's very challenging. So thank you, Tim. I repost your space more than anybody's because you are the host that can teach Twitter Spaces how to keep the peace and how to make everybody feel valued and take us all up a notch. I love you. And I hope that was concise enough because Grandma Grace just wants everybody to feel that they are noticed, they are valued, and they have a place. Grab a mic and go take a hike. I love you.
Thank you, Grace. I appreciate that. And yes, it was concise. Thank you for encouraging everyone to reshare the space. That's something that I pretty much never do. I never ask people to do that because I feel like when people want to do something, it's in their heart to do it. And I don't have to ask. And if they don't, then it doesn't mean that much. But there are people like Grace, Mama B. There are others who do that, who encourage people to share spaces. And for some reason or another, what I found is that is challenging for some individuals to be willing to do that for some reason. I don't know what it is, but thank you, Grace, for sharing that. And before we get into the conversation, I want to take a pause for the calls. And when we return, we'll get into this topic of discussion today. To our new listeners, I say welcome and thank you for joining today's Confident Speaking Space. Our mission? To help you become a more confident and effective communicator to transform the way you live, work, and play. We have 4 pillars to help you do that. 1. The 4 P's, which are pitch, pace, power, and pause, to speak more dynamically. 2. Conciseness, which helps you sound more organized and thoughtful when speaking. 3. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, so you never miss an opportunity because you're too afraid to try. And 4. Expand your comfort zone with intentional behaviors to develop new skills that will change your life. So be brave and request the mic. I invite you to simply introduce yourself, ask a question, or perhaps share your thoughts about the topic. Our goal is progress, not perfection, and we will support you every step of the way. If you want to stay connected, join our free community on X or visit our website at confidentspeaking.us. confidentspeaking.us, and subscribe to join private discussions for more personal support and additional resources. I hope to speak with you soon. Enjoy the show. Yes. Mama B, go ahead.
Yes. I'm listening. I'm like, okay, Tim, with the production. I love that. Yes. And I love you edit all of the stuff that says the website and all of that stuff. I think you forgot buy me a coffee, though. I don't know what I'm going to do with you, my friend. I'm the usher of this church. So I need to start doing that, buying the coffee at the beginning. But anyway, I'll post it in there for everyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. I'll post it in the chat. It's a link for showing some love to Tim. He doesn't like when I do this, but here I am. Sorry. It's in the chat. So I'm going to post it in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tim.
Yes, thank you, Mama B. So again, I am Tim Brown, host of the Confident Speaking Community. And today we're going to talk about why is it so hard for some people to listen? We're trying to respond to that question and thinking about the question, why is it so hard for some people to listen? And I can imagine that everyone in here at some point in time has been having a conversation with someone and you ask, are you listening? Are you listening to me? And you have to ask yourself at times, are you actually listening to something someone else is saying? And what I want you to do is to think about the idea of listening from a slightly different perspective, because we often feel that people are ignoring us. But keep in mind that people aren't necessarily ignoring you. And there are always circumstances that we need to consider, that we need to have in mind when we have our interactions with people. There are circumstances, there are experiences that we all have that may be unique to our lives. Even though they may be similar, there's going to be some variations, some uniquenesses to those experiences, and the impact that they may have on us as an individual, it may be different. So we both go to an area where something crazy happens, all of us will be impacted slightly differently by that. And what I want you to keep in mind is that in order to understand this idea of listening, of why is it so hard for some people to listen, is going to require us to have a high level of situational awareness. We need to understand what's going on in the situation. We need to continue to be intentional observers. Remember, we talk about this quite a bit. Intentional observation is imperative. It is extremely important for confident and effective communicators to be able to recognize what's happening in our conversations with people. Even if it isn't verbal interactions, there's things going on we need to be paying attention to and recognizing the behavioral reactions and responses that people may be having based on things that we're saying or things that we're doing, or it could be something else. So it's important. So before you go into a situation or a conversation with someone, well, not before, I'll say the next time you find yourself in a conversation with someone and you're thinking, they're ignoring me, or you ask the question, are you listening to me? I want you to have these considerations in mind so that you don't create a more tense interaction than it needs to be, because there could be something happening that you haven't considered and may not be aware of in that moment. Now, there's going to be 4 things I'm going to mention to you, but I'm only going to talk about 2 of them because I want to leave a little something for you to go back and look at yourself. And I'm not going to dig deep into it either. I want you to at least have an awareness in case you don't, or a reminder for those of you who may already be aware of these potential reasons that people may not actually be ignoring you, that we just haven't considered, because we get so caught up in what we want that we lose sight of what other people may actually need. We tend to forget what they may need, what may be important for them in their lives. And that's what this is about today, because listening is key. It's very important in order to have an effective interaction with someone. We have to be able to listen, whether it's listening with our ears, listening with our heart, listening with our eyes. We have to listen. But we're thinking about audibly today. The 4 things I'm going to mention to you. First, just to make you aware, is auditory masking. Auditory masking. And what auditory masking is, it's a concept that says that there may be loud or competing sounds in the environment that make it hard to hear important messages. And what ends up happening with auditory masking is that people could be listening for something that's more interesting in that interaction, but it's based on loud and competing sounds in an environment that will make it hard for people to hear important messages. Now, they hear what you're saying, but they aren't really listening. They aren't really listening. And you think about the little dog or the cat when they're laying down trying to sleep. And if you look at them for 60 seconds, you'll notice their ears just twitching back and forth, because they're constantly on alert to try to recognize what's happening in their environment, any little sound. And they're trying to constantly figure out what's happening. But auditory masking is one. The second one is selective auditory attention. And that's where we say people have selective hearing. They choose to hear what they want. And there is a such thing as selective auditory attention. And this is where the brain tends to choose what sounds to focus on, while it is actively filtering out other sounds. So yes, people do have selective hearing. Sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it isn't, because the brain is going to make sure that we survive. That's part of its main job, is to make sure that we're able to survive. So whatever the circumstance is, it's focusing on the sound that seems most important in that moment. And what's most important may not necessarily be what you're saying. They could have something else going on in their life that they're trying to deal with and trying to figure out. So it's difficult for them to give you their 100% attention and listen as effectively as they may need to in that moment, because they're dealing with selective auditory attention based on something going on in their life that you may not be aware of. But I want you to understand that these exist, so that the next time you find yourself getting upset with someone because they aren't responding the way you want them to respond, or they may seem distracted when you're speaking to them, think about these. The next one is auditory exclusion. Auditory exclusion. Now, auditory exclusion is a concept or something that happens when our brain blocks out, or it will reduce our sound perception, our ability to hear certain things. And this typically happens in high stress situations. And the brain is going to prioritize, in many cases, what we see over what we hear. And when you hear the fact of high stress situations, and a great example is when the police pull someone over. If the police are telling someone to put their hands up and everybody's yelling and screaming at that person, if guns are pointed at you, that's high stress. That's very high stress. And your brain is trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to stay safe in this moment? So it's looking, your eyes are looking and observing and looking for the hazards, looking for the danger, looking for the threats. And our brain may diminish our ability to hear, and they don't even hear some of the things that the cops may be saying to them. So in reality, Some people who aren't responding to police are not trying to be rebellious. It's because their brain has turned their hearing down so they can't hear that well, and they're trying to process what they see to stay safe. Now, that's a bit of an extreme example, but understand that from the idea of auditory exclusion, it doesn't have to be that extreme, because we all deal with stress, and we deal with it on different levels. Think about a baby laying on the bed and it's just laying there, nothing going on, and suddenly a balloon pops. And you see that baby's face and they are absolutely terrified when that balloon pops. But the adult hears it, and the adult is aware of what's going on in the environment. The adult knows that the balloon was there, so the adult isn't terrified by the balloon. So there's no reason for its brain to create this moment of auditory exclusion, trying to protect it from a dangerous explosion or balloon pop that could be hazardous. But the baby doesn't know that. And this is why we have to be attentive to what's going on with the people that we're interacting with, because there are times that we get into these conversations where voices begin to elevate, and people will say, "Don't yell at me. I don't like when you yell at me. I don't like when people yell at me." And you may be thinking, "Well, I'm not yelling," but your voice may be elevated. So an elevated voice to you could be yelling to someone else. Remember, we don't know their experience. We don't know what they have had to go through in their lifetime. If they came from a home where voices were always loud, and for them finding a place of peace, comfort, and safety meant going into the closet, putting a pillow over their head because it was always so loud, and that stressed them out constantly. So now in your environment, in your one-on-one conversation where you begin to get a little bit excited and your voice elevates, you now create this response of auditory exclusion where their brain is trying to protect them and allow them to find safety. And now it can become this bit of tunnel vision where you see them looking at you, but their brain is not allowing them to actually hear you, because they're watching to make sure that you aren't going to be dangerous to them, and that it go beyond just a loud voice, because in their past, loud voices meant someone was going to end up with a black eye. So keep that in mind the next time you're conversating with someone. They may not just be ignoring you. It could be auditory exclusion that they're experiencing in that moment. The next one that I'll mention is auditory fatigue. Auditory fatigue. And auditory fatigue is extended exposure to noise or prolonged listening efforts, which can lead to mental and physical exhaustion. So if you work in an environment as a teacher or as parents, I'm sure all of you have at least seen this, heard about it, or some of you may have experienced it yourselves. When you have kids that are running around the house and they're just making noise for days for just no reason at all, and they're just yelling and screaming and yelling and screaming, and you're visiting someone and you're watching your kids run around, make all this noise, and you see the parents sit there as though the kids aren't even there. And it's like, wait a minute, don't you hear all this noise? How are you not affected by all this noise that's making me want to get up and leave your house right now? And that's because auditory fatigue has kicked in. The kids have screamed and run and yelled so much that their brain is tired. It's no longer able to process all the chaos that's going on. And it just says, you know what? We're just going to shut down for a minute. We're just going to stop for a little bit because I'm just too tired. A long day of meetings. You're just going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and you're having to listen and be attentive to what people are saying. Your brain gets tired. And this is why, for those of you who may be teachers or coaches and trainers, think about when you do your sessions. Try not to just teach someone for an hour straight. And I know that really challenges me. I struggle when someone gets me in a seminar and they'll just talk for an hour and a half. And I'm sitting there like, oh, Lord, please, we need a break. Let's ask some questions or something different, because our brains only have the capacity to focus from anywhere between 15 to 17 minutes. And in order for someone to learn and listen effectively, it requires focus. And if we overextend the brain's capacity to focus, All that great information that you're sharing is being poured on the sidewalk because their brain is no longer focused and concentrated. So their auditory fatigue kicks in, and now you've lost the impact of what it is that you were trying to provide for that person. So think about that the next time you come home and you want to, well, you don't come home, but you may come home to a spouse that's there with the kids, and the spouse has been chasing the little ones around all day. And the kids have pushed them to a point of auditory fatigue and they have nothing else to give. Their ears are done for at least an hour. And you come in and you want to talk about this, that, and everything else, and they don't appear to be listening. And you get this glazed over look from them, and you ask, are you listening to me? Think about what has happened throughout their day, the situational awareness that you need to have, the intentional observation to begin to ask yourself and understand, well, why are you, what, is everything okay? Are you okay? How do you feel? Are you tired? Instead of assuming that they're ignoring you because now you feel like what you want to say is more important than what they may have already experienced throughout the day. Or if your husband or spouse comes home after a long day of meetings and having to solve problems galore, and you want to dump something on him or her right after they walk in the door after the traffic, because it requires a lot of thought and focus when you're driving. People don't think about that, but that requires effort. You're trying to make sure someone doesn't jump into your lane. You're trying to make sure you're following the speed limit, and all these thoughts that are going through your mind that require effort. And that affects your ability to listen effectively. Auditory fatigue. So I want you all to really keep that in mind. And my wife, I remember she would come home in the past years ago, and she would come home saying she was tired. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not sure why you're tired, because all you were doing was dealing with these people. But as I matured, as I thought about it, as I learned more, I realized that she was dealing with people. She was in an environment where people were mentally ill that had the ability to just kind of walk around the office and do what they wanted in that environment. And some of them could do things that might be dangerous. So that requires a lot of thought. That requires a heightened level of attention to the environment, and it required focus all day, trying to understand how to interact with them appropriately and safely, and also making sure that she was safe at the same time, because there were some of those individuals that may do some things that were dangerous. So that required a lot of brain power. So I learned that, you know what, I guess you can get tired just because you're having to think a lot all day and think deeply and requiring a lot of focus. So keep that in mind, everyone. The auditory exclusion, where the brain may block out some sounds or diminish our ability to hear because of high stress situations. And just because it doesn't seem stressful to you doesn't mean it isn't stressful to someone else. Keep that in mind. The auditory fatigue, our brains get tired sometimes, and we have to take a break, and we have to have the ability to recognize that when someone needs a break, we have to give them a break and not try to force them to have a conversation that they aren't prepared or equipped to have. Give them a moment, take a step back, and let them sort through that. And we have to be understanding, compassionate, empathetic, and patient so that we can recognize that. And as confident and effective communicators, these are some of the details that we pay attention to. These are some of the things that we look for to understand, because everyone is different. And what may be stressful for me may not be stressful for David. And what may be stressful for Najboon may not be stressful for me. And we have to stop assuming and trying to make everyone fit into our box or into our perception of what's good, bad, ugly, exciting, or stressful, because we're all different. Our experiences are different. We have different needs and requirements. And as confident and effective communicators, we make sure that we leave room for that to be a part of how we express ourselves and interact with people. Now, what can you do to deal with this? So just 3 things to think about. Potential ways to navigate these listening challenges that people may be experiencing, these circumstances, is to look for the signs of impaired listening. You have to look for the signs. Pay attention. Do they appear to be stressed? Do they appear to be withdrawing from you or just withdrawn, those glazed eyes that may be going on? That could be a sign of auditory exclusion or auditory fatigue. And as I said, I mentioned auditory masking and selective auditory attention as well. But those could be what's going on. Begin to look for the signs that something may be happening. And instead of assuming that if someone is distracted or seems distracted, that they're ignoring you, consider that it could be auditory exclusion or auditory fatigue. The next thing you would consider doing is adjusting your approach. Instead of just firing off all these requests, ideas, thoughts, needs, and desires that you have without really understanding what's going on, once you recognize that they may be experiencing some type of auditory impairment, then change your approach. Adjust your approach. Maybe write them a note, because if you write a note, it forces you to think through what you want to say, and it gives them an opportunity to process when they're ready, when they are capable, because now we're talking about physical capability that has nothing to do with their desire. There are times when I'm riding in the car and I'm listening to the radio or listening to something, and I have to turn it off because my brain is like, I can't take any more. I don't want to hear anything else. And I literally have to just turn off the radio and just ride in silence because my brain has become overwhelmed with trying to process the information that's coming from the radio. So it's a real thing that we need to be aware of and consider when we're interacting with people, and stop assuming that they're ignoring us or assuming that they don't care about what you have to say, because that may not be it. Sometimes it is. I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. Sometimes it is, but that isn't always the case. And that shouldn't be our first assumption, that they're ignoring us or that they don't care about what we have to say. And the last thing is to use your active listening skills. If you've been coming here for any period of time, I feel like we've been developing some pretty good listening skills, some pretty good active listening skills. And we will repeat our key points, reiterate something that's important just to make sure that they got it. And then you may also think about removing the distractions where the television needs to be turned off. And we'll try to have a conversation while the TV is on, but that just doesn't work. Especially if you're watching a game that you wanted to see, or that season finale is on, or you know something special is going to happen on that episode. Your brain is like the dog and the cat. Your ears are constantly flipping around trying to figure out, okay, I just heard one of those high-pitched notes on TV. Dun, dun, dun. And you know something special happened in that moment. And now your brain is trying to listen to that to see what you missed, instead of listening to what someone in front of you is saying. So remove the distraction, and then also de-escalate those tense moments with your active listening skills, because you recognize when the tension is getting high. We have to have the ability and the willingness to be the one to de-escalate those tense moments so that it doesn't get to a point that we can't recover or damages the relationship beyond repair, or make it hard to repair in the future. So keep those things in mind. Potential ways to navigate the listening challenges is look for potential signs of impaired listening, adjust your approach, and use your active listening skills. And remember that don't assume someone is ignoring you. People could have a medical condition that makes it hard for them to focus. That's beyond their control. It could be stress. It could also be bias. Bias impacts what we talked about today as well. I didn't dig into that because there's so much that we could say about these. I just wanted you to at least be thinking about it and go and do some digging yourself to understand how auditory masking, selective auditory attention, auditory exclusion, and auditory fatigue can impact the interactions that you're having with people. And remember, it isn't always them. Sometimes it's you. So we have to stop assuming that we're the only ones that's doing everything right. You may be the one who's experiencing this, and you need to figure out how do you manage it for yourself so that someone else doesn't feel as though they're being ignored or that what they're saying isn't important. So when you recognize this about yourself, I know when I'm experiencing auditory fatigue. I know when there's the idea of auditory exclusion going on. And when I recognize that, I take measures so that people in my environment have the ability to understand that, hey, you know what? I'm feeling this way. And right now, my brain just isn't processing the way that it usually is. So if we can talk about this a little later, I want to be as attentive as possible and give you my undivided attention so that I can fully understand what it is you want to share with me. And we have to communicate these things. But again, the intentional observation is required in order for us to understand what's happening within us or potentially identify the possibility that is happening with someone else so that we can make sure that we're having great interactions that are safe, that are appropriate, and that are beneficial for you both. Because otherwise, it goes downhill really fast when someone is experiencing this and all we do is think about, well, they're ignoring me. They don't care about what I say and storm off and never get the situation resolved. And then it becomes this perpetual disregard for what one another may be going through in those different moments. So with that said, I have a few questions that are posted. And those reflection questions that I want you to think about is, how do external distractions impact your ability to truly listen? How will you improve communication when you recognize someone may be experiencing auditory exclusion? And what are ways you will manage auditory fatigue in your relationships and at work? So I want to discuss those, and we're going to go ahead and see what some of your thoughts may be, because I expect that some of you have some great experiences that you can share that will be really insightful for all of us. And just a reminder for those of you who may be here for the first time, we do focus on our 4 Ps, where we practice our pitch, pace, power, and pause when we're speaking to allow what we're saying to be a little more interesting to people. And it forces us to be intentional about what and how we're expressing ourselves. Conciseness is something that we work on consistently here. And conciseness allows you to be more thoughtful, because we won't always have a lot of time to say everything that we want to say. And in order to practice that, we use the timer where people have 2 minutes to share. And if it's someone that's new, that's never been in the space before, we give them 3 minutes as they're acclimating to this process. But there's a chime. There's 2 chimes. The first chime is at 1 minute, 30 seconds. It means you have 30 seconds left. And then there's going to be a second chime when it's time to finish. So the first chime means go ahead and summarize your thoughts. And the second chime means it's time for us to continue moving forward. So let's go ahead to Mama B. I see your hand, Mama B. What are you thinking?
Yes, Tim Brown. As you were talking, I was thinking about something that I'm still not used to. As long as I've been in North America, I'm still not used to that. I come from a culture, maybe that has changed at this point because that's how long I've been gone. But I come from a culture where when you see someone or you come across someone, and you say, and they say, "How are you?" "Hi, how are you?" And then for me, I still stop when somebody says, "How are you?" I still stop to say, "Oh, I'm fine, thank you." And "How are you?" And I'm telling you, I always have to do a whiplash because people around, I don't know, maybe it's a regional thing, but people around me where I am, "How are you?" does not mean we stop and actually answer that question, So now I'm learning, like somebody said, when people say, "How are you?" I don't even answer because people are not listening anyway. What's the point, So I guess it goes with your topic today of why is it so hard for people to listen? But I'm going to land here. I'm going to land with your auditory fatigue and the other stuff that you mentioned there, Tim. I was actually surprised when you said the limit is about 15 to 17 minutes. And then I thought, okay, then what happens in spaces when, for me, I just gloss over so quickly when people go on and on and on, and they're definitely not talking for 17 minutes. So I'm thinking, okay, what's going on with me then? Because after 3 minutes of talking, here I am. I hope I'm not talking for 3 minutes, for longer than that. But after maybe 2 or 3 minutes of talking, I just glossed over. I don't even hear what people are saying. So what is that? Thank you, Tim.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mama B. And that's where, I mentioned the other two, auditory masking and selective auditory attention, where the brain chooses what sounds to focus on while filtering out others. And keep in mind, some of the potential causes of this could be a medical condition, it could be stress, it could be bias. Bias is one of those. And unfortunately, there are times when we may hear someone who speaks a certain way. It could be language related. And I struggled with this when I was in college in my statistics class. I mean, my goodness, that was the worst class to have that struggle. This was in college years ago. And my professor had a major accent, and I struggled to understand what he was saying. And what I did was I went back and I realized and I reminded myself that I either can drop this class or I have to figure out how to understand him better. And if I drop it and I take it again later, he's probably still going to be the professor. So I can't run from that. And what I did is I forced myself to be very intentional, very attentive to hear what he was saying, because there are other people who could hear exactly what he was saying, but because somewhere in my mind there was a bias that was going on because of the language difference, I didn't allow myself to just embrace what he was sharing. And that doesn't mean that I was a bad person, but that's something that we all do. We all have some forms of biases that cause us to not be attentive to people when they speak. If you feel like you're smarter than someone and they try to give you information that's supposed to change your life, there's a bias in us that says, well, I know you don't know as much as I do, so I'm probably not really paying you much attention right now. I'm hearing you, but I'm not really paying attention. And the bias is potentially one of them, because what they're saying just may not be interesting to you. So you gloss over and you lose the attentiveness. Not that you're necessarily tired, but it could be because it's someone that you know that when they speak, they're going to try to take 10 minutes if someone lets them, and that becomes a bias. So you have selectively identified that this is someone that I don't want to hear. Your brain chooses to focus and filter that out so that you can think about something else that you deem more important in that moment. So it could be different reasons, but those are some that you could consider, Mama B. So let's go now over to, we got Danash, Hakeem, Ami, and then Najboon. Danash, how are you, sir?
Okay, now am I supposed to answer that? Because, Mama B said, how are you is not always for the answer, but yeah, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? So when you told about these auditory fatigue and everything, I was thinking, okay, maybe I will speak first. That's my first time to speak first in a space. I never did that. So it's what I call it is sensory overload. When someone is talking to me and something else is happening and lots of inputs come into my mind, that's kind of a sensory overload. And then I say, okay, let's move to a quieter place. Let's move away from this noise because I can't focus. So that's how I manage it, because I hate this. When I pay attention to someone, it's a form of payment. I devote to a certain number of CPU cycles in my brain to listening to them, because I'm dismantling the information coming in, and I need to run around the library and look up things that he or she says. It's a mental work. And as a mental work, it's never obligatory. I do him a favor. Like, listening to someone is a big favor. Listening, quality listening, like the real listening, when you understand what a person says. And also, there was another point I wanted to make. There is a thing that I call in the IT, we call it oversaturation. When your mind is running around the same topic. It's when you work with kids, I think it's always happening. So when you run around the same topic, it's like when you use a pencil on the same space, on the same area of the paper, and suddenly it just gets thinner, and there's a hole in it, and it's just wear and tear all over. So this happens to the mind. This happens to the human mind. And when we debug one piece of program, when we focus on one area of a software we're making, this happens all the time. We know it very well. So in this case, you need a break. There is no escape from that. You need a break because your mind will shut down. Your mind will not do the work anymore. It's tired of the topic. So yeah, and just quickly a third one. Pitch and pace, your favorites. Two of the 4 P's, pitch and pace. When a person is speaking on an annoying tone or too fast, it might cause overload, because if it's too fast, I can't do the mind work of understanding. So I think that's what I know about the topic, and that's what I say to the other person when something goes wrong. So that's how I escape these situations. Thanks for the mic.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, sir. And I guess I'll say congratulations for being the first person to respond in the space, since you've never done that before. So I did hear that, and I acknowledge that. So every little thing we do, people, is a win. Consider them all wins. Every win you get, every success is leading you to become more confident. Because remember, confidence grows as a result of a track record of successes. And that little thing, the fact that he even mentioned it, is something that he's thought about. It's something that has crossed his mind and has some level of significance to him. Even though it may seem like a simple thing to everyone else, that has a level of significance. And we have to recognize what affects us. What are those moments of significance in our lives? Where are we breaking through a threshold and doing something that we may have never done before? And I want you to begin giving yourself credit for that, acknowledging it, because it matters. The details matter. And again, being attentive. As confident and effective communicators, we're paying attention to the details. We're hearing those little things that people say that may not sound like much to anyone else, but we recognize it. I don't know how many people thought about that or even considered it something that was worth talking about, but it is. If people say it, it's something worth considering. So thank you for sharing that and adding that, Danash. And to your point, yes, our brains will get overwhelmed. It's like the Charlie Brown effect. For any of you who've ever seen the show Charlie Brown, the cartoon, where the teacher, I think he was listening to the teacher, and it was like womp, 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 womp. And that's literally what it becomes for us at times when some people are speaking, because there's a form of bias or there's a form of stress. And think about stress like this. Stress doesn't always mean you're frantic, biting your nails and afraid and shaking in your boots. Sometimes the stress will reveal itself in the fact that, as Dane Nash mentioned, you don't like the tone of their voice. And that's stressful. And in your mind, it's like, oh, I hate when they're speaking. I don't like their voice. And that affects some people to the point that they actually have to leave the room or leave a conversation because certain people have certain tones in their voice that creates a visceral effect in someone's body and in someone's mind that they respond to, and it becomes stressful that they have to leave. So there's just so many details, so many considerations for us to have in mind as confident and effective communicators, so that we don't make the wrong assumptions about what or why someone is behaving the way that they are. And if you know that you feel a certain way about something, we have to have the ability and the willingness to say, hey, you know what? As Dana said, it's overload. If you know that being in a certain environment is overwhelming for you, don't try to have a conversation. Just let them know, hey, you know what? Right now, this is too much going on. If you don't mind, can we go over here or speak about this later? because I won't be able to hear what you're saying right now. I hear you, but I won't be listening because my mind is just overwhelmed. And we have to share these details with people in order for them to understand how to maximize the interactions that we're having. So it makes a difference, everyone. And I just want to remind everyone is welcome to speak. Don't be afraid to come up and grab the mic and join in the conversation. We have about 40 minutes, 39 minutes that we're going to continue discussing this, and then we're going to move over into the skills lab. And I know Hakeem was going to do a challenge last week, and he came back and he said he was going to do it this week. And he's already done his workout, so he won't be out of breath this time. So we're going to have Hakeem up first to do one of the skills lab challenges today. So just a reminder for everyone, at 12:30, we're going to transition to the skills lab. And for those of you who may not be totally comfortable speaking in the space yet, if you request to speak, even though you may be afraid to be a speaker, it's okay if you come up and don't say anything. We're fine with that because we want you to make progress. We don't care about perfection. If becoming a speaker and not saying anything is your first step, we're totally fine with that. We don't call on people unless they raise their hand. That way you can feel comfortable being up here as a speaker, taking your first step. So if you don't raise your hand, we don't call on you because we want you to be able to move forward in whatever way you need to, so that when the time comes, you are building up the confidence to not be afraid of that moment, to capitalize on an opportunity that could change your life and the life of your family for generations. So keep that in mind, everyone. Mama B, go ahead.
Yes, just a quick one. I'm thinking about the vicious cycle that happens in our homes, talking about these auditory types that you just shared there. And I think about how a child makes a mistake. And so depending on our parenting style, if we have that authoritarian parenting style, we beat up the child for the mistake. And then we yell at them for crying because we beat them up. And then we tell them that they should be listening. Why are you not listening? Because the child might be trying to be safe and cut off some of the noise that you're making. And then we beat them up for not listening, forcing them to listen. So it's a vicious cycle. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just had to say that because that's the thought that came out. Oh my goodness. No wonder some of our homes are such war zones. It's because we just get trapped in these vicious cycle, not considering or knowing, because there's a lot of lack of knowledge, of course. So we give empathy to that, but the kids are still, being impacted by our lack of knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Yeah. Done speaking, Tim. Thank you.
Absolutely. A vicious cycle. And if we don't communicate, if we don't share our experiences with one another, remember several weeks ago, we talked about building enduring friendships. And this goes over into the relationships as well. We need to have conversations about where we've been, what we have experienced, so that we are able to understand how our behaviors and actions will affect the people that are in our lives. If they grew up in a troubled home, if they grew up in an abusive environment, loud voices can be stressful for them and send them down this spiral of auditory exclusion, or selective auditory attention, or whatever it may be. It opens the door for that. And we need to be aware. We need to have at least a baseline understanding of what could be going on with people so that we're able to better manage and navigate those interactions, because you are the one that has the ability to change it. Remember, you're the thermostat. The confident and effective communicators of the world are the thermostats. We can change our environments, but we need to understand what's happening in our environments in order to know how we need to adjust the temperature appropriately. So let's go now over. We're going to go to Hakeem, Najboon, Ami, and then David. Hakeem, yes, sir. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on stage and allowing me to share. There are wonderful speakers on here with their wonderful shares, and I really appreciate it. Had me ponder. I don't know if it was addressed, but you mentioned, and I got a flashback with statistics, because we always needed statistics, and then it was someone who couldn't really communicate as well. I'm like, oh, I really need this class to pass. But the point I was making was culturally. Now, there are some that speak more authoritative, like my father, he's Nigerian, and my mom is Jamaican, and they're both loud. So I'm like, I wonder if that came off. But I just wanted to ask about culturally, how do we maneuver those who may speak loudly? And it is, I can see how it's offensive, but they're just talking, especially when politics, oh gosh, don't get started on politics, because, oh my gosh, it's a war zone. But I just wanted to know if culturally, if that was addressed, some people speaking loudly, some people speaking in your face, some, things like that. And I wanted to say thank you for letting me know that I don't have ADD, because I do tend to tune out after like 3 to 4 minutes. And I really do try to listen, but it's like after a while, and you use the perfect example, Charlie Brown teacher, it all of a sudden it does become like, it becomes muffled. And I'm trying to hear you, but I can't hear what you're saying because it sounds like muffled. And with that said, I don't know, we can go to other speakers, but whenever you're ready, I'm ready to jump into the cipher or the lion's den for the challenge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're going to do that right around 12:30. But to your question, how do we account for a culture where some cultures are louder than others? And this is where for us, and I want us to always make sure that we're taking accountability for our responsibility in the interactions that we have. Because no matter what's going on, if something goes wrong, if you're a part of it, you had a role to play and you had an opportunity to try to fix it. So that's the perspective that I want us to have to Hakeem's question. And if someone is loud culturally, that's what they do, and things can get a little animated, then you have to be willing to try to understand. And this is where the intentional observation comes into play, where there may be multiple interactions that you've had with someone, and you begin to recognize this pattern. And you realize that, okay, they're always loud. So it isn't just me that they're loud with. This is just what they do. And you begin to piece together, where are they from? What are people from their same part of the world typically like? How do they typically interact? And that gives you information to understand, okay, I get it now. That's why he's always so loud. It has nothing to do with me. He's just, like people say black people are loud or aggressive. But sometimes when we're having fun, you get in environments and it can get a little loud, but it has nothing to do with hostility or aggression. That's just the culture and the way things happen in some of our environments. And people have to be willing to understand that before making an assumption or trying to attach a label based on a bias that's been perpetuated to try to make someone appear as though they're a certain type of person that they really aren't. And that's why we have to really be careful of the biases that can kick in that will keep us from even being willing to listen. Because if there's a bias because you feel like this person is angry, hostile, and aggressive, the bias is going to prevent you from hearing them anyway, because you have this preconceived notion about who they are. So you're looking for something that's more important. You don't see them as significant, and the things they say don't matter in those instances in a lot of cases. So we have to take time to understand, who is this person, where are they from, and be curious. And if you have to spend significant time and multiple interactions around people like that, ask the question, hey, Mike, I know, man, when we're talking, you seem to be a little loud. It feels aggressive, and that may not be the case, but I just wanted to have this conversation with you so I can understand. Do I get you riled up when we're talking and communicating? Ask the question so that they can explain to you what's happening. And that way we don't have to guess, wonder, or make assumptions and then go around saying to other people what they are or what they're doing when that isn't the reality. Because if you're thinking it, someone else probably is as well. And the moment someone else comes to you and so-called validates what you were assuming, now you have this confirmation bias going on in your head, so that every time they speak and their voice seems elevated, you now are confirming in your mind that, yeah, they're aggressive. They're aggressive. So I'm going to stay away from them. And we don't want to do that. We want to be very careful not to allow the biases, and understand if it's stressing us out, have a conversation with them to try to figure out how it can be approached differently, because it could be something they're willing to change. You never know. So great question, because culture does matter. Culture does matter. And I'll tell you this really quickly before we go to Najboon. I remember going to this place where someone used to do some editing for us, for our church years ago. And he was from Pakistan. And I remember him telling me, we were having a conversation, and he said, you know what? People where I'm from, we get offended if you don't try to negotiate with us. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, people get offended if you don't try to haggle when they're selling you something. And I just thought that was very interesting, because I don't want to have to haggle. If this is my price, then I will hope that you would just pay it and we not have to have this big back and forth, even though I'm open to understanding what your circumstances may be. But some people will just do it just because they can, for the fun of it. And for him, it was cultural. That was a way of life, that you haggle when someone is selling something. So we have to understand, take time to understand. And that's one of the beauties and benefits of spaces like this. We have access to people from all around the world, all these different cultures, and all we have to do is ask. And we can get a better understanding of what we may be experiencing when we interact with certain people, because it could be a cultural part of who they are, with no bad intentions intended. Najboon, how are you today?
Hi, Tim. I am great. How are you?
I am fantastic. Smile on my face.
Sounds great, Tim. May God bless you abundantly. And thank you for such valuable insights, such great revisions for listening. Greetings, everyone. I would cover something from the perspective that I learned and improved in my life. I deduce an area of improvement in myself, Tim, and everyone, that I used to be preoccupied in my head when someone used to share their challenges or problems with me. I used to assume that if they are sharing their problem and challenges, they're looking for solutions and advice. Which eventually I analyzed and I deduced and I changed it. So I understood that they are not just looking for solutions, they just want to be heard. They want their emotions to be honored and feel valued. Once I stopped that, it just made me an effective communicator, because and one, I don't stress myself when I listen to people's challenges, because all they want is a very generous act to be heard. Second, I don't jump into giving them advice. It doesn't stress my listeners, my speakers. It doesn't stress them. It just makes them feel comfortable to speak as much as they can, express their heart out to me. That's one. So I'm really glad that I did that change in my life, and I don't assume anymore the purpose and the intention of the speaker. I would let them complete. I would ask them questions to understand better and better. I never jump to give into advice until they ask me precisely. I never open my mouth to advice, because most of the time people are aware of the solutions. It's just that they want, they want to be heard. Oh, I still have 30 seconds. I realize it. So, and from theological perspective, I love the concept of listening, which connects to your generosity part, Tim, that how active listening can be a simple act of generosity, which we all can do to each other and make all of us feel valued. So one of the phrases of Bible I remember is, be fast or active to listening, slow to speaking, and slower to anger. Which, just one last line, Tim, if it's okay. How another part of theology talks is how patience can be endured and improved if you only and only just become a better listener. So that's it. Thank you for your time and stage.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And I love that you began with how you grew, how you made a decision to be better. And you took the time to recognize how you were affected by people and also how you were affecting people based on your behavior. And we have to be willing to do that in order to maximize our relationships and interactions with people. Remember, there's accountability and responsibility that we have in a situation. Even if we aren't the one that was wrong, we still play a part. So I'm super excited to hear that you recognize that and decided to do something differently. And we definitely have to be slow to speak, not be so quick to jump in. And to your point about not trying to offer advice, when I hear someone explaining something to me and they appear to be venting, depending on who it is, and it may vary. Sometimes I'll just listen and I don't say anything, but it depends on how they approach me and how they're expressing themselves. And I may ask, now, did you want to just vent? You wanted me to just listen so you can get it off your chest, or do you want my feedback? And I'll ask that sometimes to give them the option to let me know. And that way I'm demonstrating my respect for what they were trying to accomplish and not hijacking the conversation that they were willing to have with me because of me feeling, okay, I've got all the answers you need. Let me help you out. Let me figure this out for you and show you how to fix your life, when that isn't what they want, as Najboon just said. Sometimes they just want you to listen. And you'll be surprised that when you just hear yourself speak sometimes, because when it's bottled up in our head, it can be very difficult to process a lot of chaotic information that's just floating around in your head like a whirlwind. You may need to put it down on paper so you can see it and realize that what feels like a big, scary bear in your head really is just a little baby puppy when you write it down and you process what's really going on. And for some, they have to hear it. Because I know I'm a talker. When I'm dealing with something, I have to discuss it. I need to share it and speak about it. And that helps me process. That gets it out when I get to talk about it. And I may need 2 or 3 times to discuss it. But once I've discussed it enough, it's gone and I'm good. It's over for me at that point. So thank you for that, Najboon. So let's go now over. So we're going to go to Ami, David, Grace, Nukes, and then Ryan. Ami, how are you today? Queen Ami.
Hey, King Tim.
Hey.
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm fantastic. I am fantastic. A friend of mine likes to say better than amazing.
Living the dream.
Yes.
All right. All right. I love it. Loving the space. So I wanted to share some thoughts about bias. Sorry. So I started reading a book this month for Black History Month, and it's talking specifically about the Black experience in the United Kingdom. And the first chapter is the histories. And I want to improve my literacy, so I met a girl who's also an ex. She hosts spaces where she's reading a book, and then she has like a Q&A discussion afterwards to see what people thought about what she was reading. And I actually want to ask Tim if he would be happy for me to post recorded spaces in the community of me reading, if that's acceptable, Tim?
Well, the reason I set that space up was for us to make it easy for people to have information about what the confident speaking community is doing. And I know that it gets overwhelming on the timeline and things get lost, they get pushed down. And I wanted that community for the specific purpose of easy access to information about what we're doing in this space. And if one person does it, then everyone starts doing it, then the community timeline begins to look just like our regular timeline and things start getting lost. So that's why I did that. So yeah, so I would rather not for that purpose, only because that was the intent of the community here on X, at least.
Right. Okay. No problem. Okay. So, what I wanted to share was because when I saw the space title, "Why is it so hard for some people to listen?" I immediately thought about this book, and I tried. I did a recorded space of me reading it, and some people from the Christian community decided that it was racist for me to read about Black history, and I found that quite disheartening. And now I'm a little bit, I guess, a little bit disappointed, because I think it's important for people to know their history, and I would encourage anyone who's here today to study history, because some of the biases that Tim was talking about earlier can get in the way of communication. And I don't want that to happen. I really don't. That's not my intention. And I just want everyone in the space to know that their voice matters and their history matters. And you will face people who, because I get racist comments in my DMs. I was in a space recently, someone started saying all this verbal abuse, and they thought I was Indian from my profile picture. So not only was it offensive to Black people, but also to Indian people. And I just want to encourage people to speak confidently about the things that are important to them. I will now yield my mic, and I would like to join in for any challenges that are taking place today as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. We will definitely add you to the list. So then Hakeem and now Ami are both going to do a challenge this afternoon. Well, today, I'll say today. It may not be afternoon for everyone else. But we do want to keep that in mind, that the biases can affect someone's willingness to listen to us when they have a certain perception about who you are, what you look like, something someone else has said. And there's a tendency to diminish or even try to demean the words that you speak. But you have to believe in yourself enough. Remember, in order to be a confident and effective communicator, it begins with understanding who you are and believing in you, and not allowing their perceptions about you to change your perception about yourself. And sometimes what you're sharing, most times, it isn't for the people who have the negative thoughts and comments. And we have to learn to ignore that. And I will tell you, because no matter how much faith you have in something, there are going to be times that we're impacted by things. And everyone knows my faith and my belief, and my belief in God as a believer in Christ. Everyone knows that, who's been in this space at least 3 times. But there's still things that will affect me a little bit, that will agitate me a little bit, because I'm human. But what I do is I practice essentially putting myself in certain environments so that I can build up my immunity. It's just like babies. When people try to keep their baby away from everyone and they don't want anyone to ever touch their babies, but at some point the babies have to be exposed to the germs so that they're able to build their immunity. And what I have literally been doing, because I have some things, some feelings, when I was younger, things that disturbed me on a much different level than they do now. They still bother me and affect me. But I've been intentionally building my immune system to a different level so that it becomes a smile when I hear things that you describe, Ami, when I see things that people will post and write. And for those who may be thinking, well, if you're a believer and you have faith, you shouldn't worry about it. But there was a time when Jesus got a little upset. Jesus had some feelings and emotions that he shared, if you read the Bible. So we as humans will have emotions and feelings that we experience, but it's how we deal with them that makes the difference. So for me, and just everyone, just continue to believe in yourself. And please don't allow someone's hate someone's biases or someone's ignorance to silence you when you know that you have something of value to share, because it isn't for them. And that's why it's so hard for things to change, because the people who are trying to do good are so affected by the people who choose to do bad, and they quit. So don't quit trying to do the good work that you know you need to be doing because someone has a negative opinion about you or about the things you're trying to accomplish, because that's their goal, is to stop you. And if all the good guys quit being good guys, then all you're left with is the bad guys, so to speak. I'm not saying it. This is just a reference to good guys, bad guys type thing. So keep that in mind, Ami. But thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to go to Mama B. And then after Mama B, we'll go to David, Grace, Nukes, Ryan, and then Poppy. Go ahead, Mama B. Oh, and before we do, and just so everyone knows, at the top, I pinned some reflection questions to keep in mind and consider as we are discussing why is it so hard for some people to listen? Why is it so hard for some people to listen? And we've talked about some considerations to have in mind, that it isn't always that someone is ignoring you. Sometimes they're dealing with a circumstance that's beyond their control, that they did not choose to be in, such as auditory masking, selective auditory attention, auditory exclusion, and auditory fatigue. And those are some of the things that we discussed today. And I want you to do some research on your own and go look those up and get a little more familiar with them so that it begins to stick and that you can remember what it is that we've discussed and be able to apply it and recognize it in your life when you are in a position where you're experiencing that. So we stop making assumptions. But before we go to Mama B, we're going to take a quick pause for the calls, and then we'll come back and Mama B is going to share her thoughts. Greetings to everyone here in today's Confident Speaking Space. Your presence is greatly appreciated, and we would love to hear from you. Our goal is progress, not perfection. So please don't be afraid to request a mic. You're invited to share your thoughts as a speaker or in the chat. We're all growing together, and we're here to help you become a more confident and effective communicator in every aspect of your life. If you're enjoying the conversation and want to stay connected, you can join our free community on X for updates about future spaces. But don't forget to visit our website at confidentspeaking.us for additional resources and to continue your journey. Enjoy the rest of the show. We don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again. And that's why we're here practicing, everyone, so that we can identify the mistakes, figure out how to fix them, and be able to avoid them in the future. So Mama B, what do you have for us?
Yes, and identifying the mistakes. And so when we talk about what Ami said there about some of the comments that she gets, it made me think of the conversations that we are having in my space on Sundays. We've been talking about how racism in parenting impact the children, and how racism, it's a system, right? It's a system of oppression. It affects all of us. It warps us into different people than we would have been without it. And so I was thinking about how when people, so then it warps us, right? Because when we are taught to deny other people's humanity, we are also denying our own humanity, and that affects our self-esteem. It affects us. It's just a toxic mess that we are steeped in, right? This racism. So when Ami, you were talking there, and people sending you stuff who are racist, I thought, wow, yeah, this is just people bleeding their own deficiency, right? Because to be racist, you have to be deficient somewhere. You have to have some deficit somewhere. And so you lack humanity for yourself because you lack humanity for other people. So when I shifted that in my brain, thinking, oh yeah, these people are just bleeding their own deficiency, I started to have a little crack maybe of empathy, not excuse, but just empathy to say, yeah, it's just us bleeding. We're just victims, bleeding, wounded everywhere. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Mm. Thank you for that, Mama B. And that affects people's ability to listen well. You know, again, it gets into that the aspect of bias that can be caused that leads people to not pay attention the way that they should when someone else is speaking. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So let's go now over to, let's see, I believe David had to leave. So we'll go to Grace, then Nukes. Yeah, Grace, Nukes, and then Poppy.
Can I have Nukes go first because I have my notes and I jumped out to take my shower.
Yeah, we can. That's fine.
Great.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and go to Nukes. Nukes, how are you today, sir? You're muted if you're speaking, Nukes. So Nukes may be having connection issues. So what we'll do then is we'll go ahead and go over to Poppy, and then we'll come back to Grace after Poppy. Poppy, how are you, sir?
I am blessed and highly favored, Tim. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for this space. Blessed up to the co-hosts, Brenda, Mama B, all the speakers in the house. God is great. He's good all the time. I am here practicing the art of listening, and that's why it took me so long to come up to speak. I also put in the chat there that we should be slow to speak and quick to listen, paraphrasing the scripture, and slow to wrath. But just a great topic all around, and I just want to contribute maybe 10 cents worth. When we're having a conversation with someone or in a space, I look at the intention, like what's my intention towards the person that I'm speaking with? And we should all have a genuine interest towards the one you're speaking with, your intentions. Am I really looking to edify the person, build them up? But some people are there to gather information, give me the juice, so to speak, give me all of the stuff so I can go gossip about you. And so not everybody at the ball game is rooting for the same team. And so the intent of the heart, is where it lies, where if we are truly, especially in a case where someone is hurting, they call on you to confide in you, and they have confidence. I don't even like to use that word trust, but they have confidence in you that when they share something with you, that is not going to be broadcast everywhere. So the listener's intention is paramount in this situation, and it's sad when it's done to you by a friend or someone close, a confidant, and they go out and spread this. So the intention is very big, and I'll leave with this here: the 15 minutes of fame. People don't want to listen because they're just up there to make their point and gain their little 15 minutes or whatever. But we should practice a little bit more genuine, heartfelt care and concern for one another, and do it with the greatest of intentions and love. Thank you, Tim. Great topic. Bless up, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Poppy. And intentions matter. Intentions make all the difference. It's why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And when you stop and think about why you're doing it, why am I saying this? Why am I behaving this way? It will have an impact on what you ultimately end up doing or what you ultimately end up saying. So we have to really be attentive to our intentions, as Poppy said, because it makes a difference. And two people can do the exact same thing and have two totally different intentions. And one can be wrong and the other is totally fine with what they did because the intention was in the wrong place. So we have to be very careful about that and be more considerate of other people doing things because you want to have a positive impact, not because you want to be seen, because you want attention. And this is where conciseness comes into play, and it's helpful for you. When you develop the ability to be concise in your communication, people no longer will establish this idea in their mind that you're simply trying to be seen. Because there's some people, they put themselves in position to have that time to shine so people can see how brilliant they are, how smart they are, how much more they know than everyone else. And that can lead to the womp, 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 womp. Because if that's the expectation or the perception that people have of you, they stop listening because they already know that what you're saying is not about trying to help them. It's about trying to show them that they're better than you in some sense. And not that they're better, but you get my point. They're trying to make a point as opposed to trying to make a difference. And that matters. Are you trying to make a point or are you trying to make a difference? That matters. So thank you for sharing that, Poppy. Excellent point that you brought up, sir. Make sure your intentions are in the right place. So we'll go over to Grace and then, yes, we'll go to Grace now. So Grace, are you ready?
I am ready as I can ever be. I'm here to practice, and I'm so grateful, Tim. I consider you a brother because you'll tell us what we need to hear, not just what we want to hear. So I'm going to take a breath and look at my notes so I can be very concise here. For me, because I've had a lot of concussions, and I can communicate really well with homeless people and people in the streets, but on space, there's a lot of challenges for all of us. And for me, I need to know that. So I need to be aware. I need to be self-aware. So what I wrote in the bubble was awareness and taking breaks. This is the answer to how to deal with that. For me, drinking water, putting my feet up, stretching, moving, just being aware that I'm not stuck somewhere, turning off the tech a lot. These things help me so much. Learning to understand myself, seeking to understand others. I'm asking God to help me keep growing and learning so I can make good choices and adjustments as needed. I have a desire to be a better listener, and practicing will make me a better speaker. So I want to do my best to stay refreshed so I can refresh others. And I wrote a little acronym as we were talking about listen. The letter L is to learn and to love. I is to be interested in the speaker and what they're saying from their heart. To be sincere is S. T is teachable. E is engaged. And N, I believe listening is necessary. And our response is our responsibility. We just don't know what we don't know. And Tim, you teach us so much every week. This space is gold. And I'm so grateful to be here. And I say, Lord, help us have a listening heart. And with that, I'll drop my mic.
Thank you for that, Grace. And Grace, I just wanted to tell you that I have seen the work and the effort that you're putting in to your conciseness, and I recognize it, not just in here, but I've seen it in other spaces. And I was going to send you a message to tell you, but I figured, you know what, why not do it now? Let me do this publicly so everyone else knows. I see it. I see the growth that you're making, and you're putting forth an assertive effort to do that. And we don't grow unless we want to. Growing and learning begins with desire. And then with that desire requires intention. And you have become very intentional about that. You've said it, and now you're doing it. So I just want you to know that I see that. I recognize that. So thank you for doing that, not for me, but for yourself, because that's going to serve you very well in your life and then the lives of those people who God sends you to have an impact in their life. Because if you don't have the ability to be concise when it's appropriate, then you lose the ability to have impact, because people will have these biases. Remember, if they perceive you as someone that's going to have too much to say of things that they don't want to hear, they're going to miss the important stuff of your message, because the bias causes them to mask or to have selective auditory attention, because they perceive that you're going to say a lot of things that they don't care about. So kudos to you, Grace. Go ahead, Grace. And then we're going to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to do the challenge because I wasn't going to speak. I was just going to listen because of the topic. But, we got to do what the Holy Spirit says. And I would like to be challenged because we all grow. And I encourage everybody to grab a mic, come up here. Come on, you can do this.
Absolutely. So I have you down then, Grace. So we've got Hakeem, Ami, and then Grace that's going to do a challenge today. So we have 3 people already. That's set. And then we're going to Brenda. Go ahead. We'll go to Brenda, and then we'll go to Javier after Brenda.
It's 12:30, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And what I was going to do is we're going to get the rest of the hands that were up. So I know we had Javier, Ingrid, and Brooklyn was the final hand that I saw. And then we'll go over into the skills lab. So let's go to Javier. Javier, how are you today? Welcome to the space.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. It's Xavier.
Oh, you know what?
No,
Okay. That's
no
my
worries.
bad. I was looking at the, yeah. Okay. Xavier.
No worries. No worries. It's okay. I appreciate you for having me. I'm new to spaces, and so I really value any opportunity to come and practice my delivery and just the content of why I'm even up here. Recently, I've been on the concept of aura and how that really affects how people perceive you and really how you go about the actions of your daily life. And I believe, just like what Poppy said, your intent is so important. And when your daily habits align with your in the moment intent, I believe that's when you are able to perceive someone's aura in a really palpable way. And I just want to help people, not only help people, but improve and grow my aura, and just learn more about the metaphysics of communicating and connecting with people. So I really appreciate this opportunity to just practice, and thank you. I plan to.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining, Xavier. We appreciate you.
Come again. And
Oh, I heard you say sounds like you say you look forward to coming back again. But I want to thank you for being here and again being intentional. My heart jumps when I come across people that are intentional about improving themselves, that are willing to do the work and will put in the effort to get better, because we cannot get stagnant in life where we feel like we have arrived and that we've accomplished all that there is to accomplish. And for me, like if I'm at work, if I have excelled to a point where a certain task that I do, a certain form of my job, and I do it well, I don't get comfortable and settle for just doing it the way that I've done it. I then begin to look for ways to refine that. Can I make this better? What's another opportunity to refine what I'm already doing comfortably so that I can expand my comfort zone and increase my value that I bring to the organization? And the same with relationships and your communication and your speaking, Xavier. And what I will say to you is, yes, that's what this space is about. We're focused on becoming more confident and effective communicators, and we're practicing that. But I want you to go to every space. I want you to go and approach any interaction that you have with people as an opportunity to practice, because you can. You have the ability to be aware of what you're doing, to be aware of why you're doing it, and you are able to refine how you do it with every interaction. So don't feel as though this is the only place that you can practice, because you can practice with any interaction. And I do that. There have been times where I'm speaking to friends, and in my mind, I'm paying attention to what I said and how I said it. And I'm kind of going through this process of growth with my friends. They don't know it, but I have things going on behind the scenes in my brain that I'm trying to improve. So no matter where you are or who you're speaking with, when you have something you want to improve, you can always practice. And sometimes I practice sitting at home watching television. I'll recite parts of commercials just to practice my 4 Ps a little bit, or see if I can create a certain emotion from a couple lines that I remember from the commercial. There's always an opportunity to practice and get better. And one thing that I want to say before we go over to Ingrid and then Brooklyn, and I know, because I know the question popped up is, and I think it was in reference to what I said, or possibly what Poppy was saying about people having that moment and that time to shine. And yes, the question was, what if I am smart and brilliant? And yes, most of you are. Everyone in here is smart and brilliant in some form or fashion. We all have our areas of brilliance, but the bigger picture of that, the idea behind that, is how do we use our brilliance? Because if you're this bright, glowing light of excellence and knowledge and understanding, you can shine the light too brightly and it blinds people. So we don't ever want our light to shine so brightly that people can no longer see. And it's about, for me, it's about humility for me. Just because I know something doesn't mean I have to show it or that I have to tell people that I know. And there are times people will come to me with information that they want to share with me. Maybe they just learned it, or they feel like, hey, this is going to be really valuable for you. And I may have learned it 10 years ago, and they'll come tell me, and I'll just nod my head, smile, and say, ooh, thank you, even though I already know. Because I don't have to take away from the moment that they feel excited about sharing something with me because I know it. And that's what I mean when I say sometimes it's what's your intention? Why do you have to say, oh, I already know that? What's the benefit of that? So now they may never come to you again with something that they're excited about because they feel rejected or whatever emotion they may feel. That could be a stressful situation for them. And now it becomes uncomfortable to have an interaction with you because they don't know if what they say is going to cause you to cut them off. Because when you say, I already know that, that can feel dismissive in some people's head. We just never know. But that's why we observe intentionally. We have our situational awareness and we consider our intentions of why we do the things that we do. And when we think about that, it will allow us to put so much into perspective of what we're doing. And we'll find that a lot of things that we were going to say, we will decide not to say because our intention wasn't in the right place, or it may not have been beneficial or as valuable as we thought it would be. So let's go now over to Ingrid. Ingrid, how are you today?
I am great, Tim. Still a little under the weather, but I'm feeling much better, especially with a bit of ginger and lime and honey and cayenne pepper. So I would recommend that because once I started doing that regimen, it started breaking up the cold that I had in my chest, the mucus that's what I had in my chest. Great space today. And one thing I wanted to say for the group here today, our community, yes, I always ask for the mic because once you sit around and listen, but you have the mic, it sort of entices you to want to come up and speak. When you don't have the mic, you hear certain things, you go, oh, I wish I had the mic, I could have said something. So always, if you have those butterflies, go for the mic, and then you get a chance to speak, and that will break that ice that you've been trying to break. My mom always used to say that when you ask someone will say, oh, how are you? And the person, and she normally would say, I'm fine, no sense complaining because no one cares. And a lot of times she would say that, and she would say to me later, did you see that? They didn't even bother, they weren't even listening to what I said. Or another time when somebody says, oh, how you doing, Perla? And she will say, not too good. And then the person will say, oh, that's great. Have a good day. Again, somebody not listening. So a couple of times where you could always find out if somebody is listening or drop a little nugget here and there. And hopefully whatever you have to say is captivating enough that they will listen and you will share. Next time, I would like to do the challenge again because I think it definitely is great practice. And I'm really trying my very best to get to the point because I have some work to do. We have our government to save, and I am already getting better so then I could do what I have to do to give back to America what it gave to me. Thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Ingrid. And you brought up a point that I wanted to touch on from what Mama B said about people speaking. When you ask people how they're doing, and for Mama B's experience, it's just a phrase that people use with no real intent. And it doesn't have to be that way, because I will ask people how they're doing, and I'm listening for their response, and not just their words, but I'm listening for the way they respond. And if they respond in a way that sounds as though they're struggling with something, I ask another question. You know, what's going on? Something you want to talk about, depending on who it is, of course. And I don't just leave it at how are you doing and then just walk away. And if they're especially if it's someone I don't know, it's like, hey, well, you know what? Things are going to work out. You know, the day's almost over, and I'm sure it's going to get better, because remember, things can always be worse, no matter how bad it may seem right now. But something to give them an opportunity that if they need a listening ear, they can feel comfortable enough that it's there, because we never know what someone is going through in those moments. So a lot of people, it's just something to say. But for me, and it could be for you, that you can choose to use that as an opportunity to truly connect with someone and not just let it be words that fall to the ground with no meaning at all. So something to keep in mind. But let's go now we're going to go to Brooklyn, and then we jump into the challenges. Brooklyn, how are you today, sir? So
very good, Tim.
And just a reminder. So today we're talking about why is it so hard for some people to listen? And I posted a few questions that people could respond to at the top, and they're also in the purple pill as well. Why is it so hard for some people to listen? But go ahead, sir. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing very well, and believe me, everything that you're saying, I already practice. Every single person in this space right now, everyone, excluding no one, has a unique contribution to the world. And the way I conquered it was to make a goal and believe in that goal with all your heart and soul, and that goal will resonate into confidence. Confidence is the most magical thing in the world. It cannot be seen, but it could be felt by everyone. And everyone in this space has a little bit of greatness in them in some fashion or another. You just got to reach soul search and find out what you want in this world more than anything and conquer it, because you can accomplish anything. There is no limits. You are your only limit. So don't put any limits, and don't ever say outside, I'm going outside the box, because there is no box. Now, what I want, my challenge is for people, everyone in this space to make a goal. I don't care how absurd it sounds, an astronaut, a plumber, an electrician, a wrestler, a singer, because you can accomplish anything you want with self-belief. And when that self-belief becomes confidence, watch out. It's like putting a rocket ship in your back. You can't be stopped. No one could ever stop your confidence, but they could feel it. They could feel it. And I did it. Because when I was 16, I had confidence and self-belief in becoming a wrestler. And what did that sound mean?
So we do 2 minutes in here. The first sound means it's 30 seconds left. Yeah.
Okay. Please believe in yourself and believe you can accomplish anything that you want in life if you really want it. Okay. I reached my time limit. I didn't realize there was a time. I apologize.
Oh, no. You're fine. You don't have to apologize. You asked to understand what it was. But yeah, that's what we do, because part of our goal here is to develop our conciseness. And that's a way for us to be very intentional about becoming more concise when we speak. and in our interactions with people. But thank you for that boost of confidence for everyone to remember to believe in yourself, because that's where it begins. If you don't believe in yourself, why would anyone else believe in you? So it begins with you. So thank you for that, Brooklyn.
Thank you for it.
Yes, sir. Brenda, go ahead. And then we're going to see if Nukes is able to speak again after you, Brenda.
That was it. Nukes.
Thank you very much for that. Nukes, are you ready, sir? Are you able to speak now?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
Is my voice clear?
Yes, I
How
can
you
hear you.
doing, team? How you doing, Mambly? How you doing, Brad? I hope you guys doing great. Everyone feeling great. I will jump straight to it. I know you have a time limit. So this is something is like topic you were guys discussing early. So it's a bit late, but I will just share this part. Okay, so sometimes I do mute when listening to some podcasts or space to protect my energy from negative spell, belief. Voice like sound that carry energy. When someone talking, we hear words, but their energy that impact us. And I'm in the audience, I can't contribute or don't have energy to jump in, share my thought to reverse this spell they are throwing. I just mute because there will be no impact other than my energy gonna become low after whatever that person gonna say. And this is advice to everyone listening. You are sharing your energy all the time, and sometimes it's just going to waste. Be aware of your energy when you are listening. Is your energy getting low or up? And protect your energy when sharing it, at least when it doesn't have impact. Because the difference when there an impact, example, when a friend called me to empty their heart on me, saying everything negative that happened to them. Even it will make me feel low, me listening to them will make them feel better. And when they feel better, I will feel better. And they get my energy back again. Both will feel better before the call did start. So be aware when you are sharing your energy, and sometimes it's okay to mute. Yeah, back to you, Tim.
Yes, sometimes it's okay to mute and just listen. And we do have to be aware of those interactions that we're having when we're listening to people, because it can be draining. And I'm going to find the word. My wife came across a term a couple weeks ago. And what the term means is that certain sounds cause a stress reaction, a visceral stress reaction in people. And it can get a lot deeper for some people than others. Scratching on the chalkboard is one example, how it can affect you. Some people get this little sensation going through your body where you feel this tingling and you just want to run away from it. Or some people hearing the little styrofoam bubbles popping or the styrofoam crackling, it creates a visceral reaction or a stress reaction to you. But I'm going to find that. I'm going to get the word for that. But just something to keep in mind, though, all the different details, all the nuances that come into play when we are interacting with people to understand why they may not be listening. And again, remember, it isn't always because they don't care. Sometimes they don't care what you have to say. Sometimes they aren't interested in having a conversation with you. But this is why it's so important for us to be attentive to the signs that people are sharing with us, especially when you can see them. But sometimes, even when it's just audio and you can't see them, you have to learn to recognize the changes in tone, the demeanor of their voice, the way they project. If they started out excited and then suddenly the answers become short, they become shorter and shorter. We have to recognize those little nuances in our interactions to realize that something has probably changed and we need to understand what, why, and how do we fix it. If it can be fixed so that we maintain a productive interaction with someone and that we haven't taken someone captive with our oversharing or our pain and grief that they don't need to deal with because they have their own pain and grief that they're trying to work through and they may not want ours dumped on them. So just those little details. But thank you for that, Nukes. Great point. Great point. So what I want to do is we want to get into let's see here. So what I'll do, we're gonna go to Hakeem. We got Hakeem, Ami, and then Grace that are gonna do the challenge, and then we're gonna go to Rumi after that. So Hakeem, and then Hakeem just dropped. Okay, so we'll go to Ami then. It's amazing how timing works like that. As soon as I said his name, his picture disappeared from the screen. So Ami, are you ready? All right. So Ami's going to do a challenge today, and what I'm going to do, Ami, I'm going to pose a question to you, and the question for you, Ami, is what makes you a good friend? Why do you feel you're a great friend? And the time begins when you do. Why do you feel you're a good friend to have?
Oh, I would put it down to my headphones. I'm one of those people that can't leave the house without headphones. And when I am with my friends, I'm not wearing any headphones. I want to listen and engage and share and talk. I have some sensory issues, so when it comes to like loud noises and things, I struggle. So whenever I'm with my friends, I like to play something relaxing in the background. If I'm with them in person, and I try to be a good listener, and that's all we can really do for each other. Really, is to be a friendly ear, and I pride myself in spending a lot of time listening to my friends. Okay, all right. That's the second time.
All right. So let me ask you, so how do you feel about the response, Ami? What's your take on that?
Oof, I don't think I did as well as I would have liked, but I said the first thing that came to my head, so I'm happy with that. When if I'm in company with a lot of people and someone sees me put my headphones on, that's my way of saying I can't hear anymore. So I think I use that as a way to communicate to my friends what I can and can't hear, to establish healthy boundaries in certain situations. Yeah. Thank you.
Interesting. And I wonder how many friends would notice that about their friend, that they would have a gesture of putting their headphones on or AirPods in their ears as a sign that, okay, it's time for us to stop talking now. Brenda, go ahead. You want to give some feedback for Ami?
Yes, I do. Ami, I get the sense that you said a lot of things, but not really. I feel like you're a great friend, and I feel like you don't know that because I was there. You didn't give us enough of why you're a great friend. I'm sure of it.
So, Ami, any thoughts to that? Does that resonate with you?
I consider some people. Thank you, Brenda. I consider some people on this platform as really close friends. If they're in, I've been in situations where someone has contacted me in the middle of the night because they had an emergency, and I've been like, screenshot me your PayPal right now. I don't do it for everyone, but I do it for certain people that I consider my friends, and I think I'm quite generous with my time as well. So yeah, thank you, Brenda. You've got me thinking. I didn't know anything about that. I need some money, girl.
Wait a minute. Let me see.
It's so British to like not want to talk about yourself, like, and give yourself praise. I felt very awkward during the share, to be honest, Brenda.
So that's a good point that Brenda raises, because it highlights the fact that if you were awkward sharing that there are aspects about you that you feel are more personal than than you want to provide or share to everyone else. And that can cause us to be a little bit reserved. And as confident and effective communicators, those are things that we are paying attention to. Brenda says she said some things, but not really saying much, because she was listening to how are you explaining to me that you're a friend, and the nuances of what people are saying. And this is why we have to be attentive listeners, intentional observers, and really pay attention to what people are saying and what they're doing. Because I see this happen so often. People will respond to a question and they never actually give an answer to the question. They give information, but they never give an answer to the question. So something things for all of us to think about and be mindful of. But Ami shared what she had to share, and I respect that as well. That's what she had to offer based on her comfort level. And you get to choose when you're the person with the mic and someone asks you a question. It's your choice on how you want to respond. Mama B, go ahead.
Yes, you can respond like a politician there, Tim. You never answer the question. You answer something else that you want to talk about. So yeah, it is a good communication point and skill to have there, Tim. Yeah, and not that I say that's what I was thinking about you. I mean, I was actually focused on listening to you on the 4 Ps, because I just recently started to think that maybe I could listen to my own spaces, and it is cringe. It is cringe, and I'm working on my pace and all of that stuff, whatever I think is making it cringe for me. And so I was listening for that for you, listening to you, Ami, and listening for the pace, the pitch, the power, and the pause, and all of them were spot on. I really like that. I don't know whether maybe it's part of it. Part of it is the accent or what, but something I really liked. So, and I wasn't really focused much on what it is you were saying. It was just the mood and the tone that I was caught up in. I can say though that in the answer itself, it felt as if maybe at the beginning, maybe you could have given yourself some time and not jump into the thing, the presentation quicker, because it felt like you were still trying to figure out what to say. And Tim is always saying that say what's there. Don't try to say what you think people want to hear. So maybe that's what you did here. You just said what was there for you. But anyway, my thing was the 4 Ps, and I really like them. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mama B. And this is just a reminder. So for everyone, as we do the skills lab and people do the challenges, we always ask for feedback from the listeners. And even if you don't do the challenge yourself, giving feedback is part of the work that we do. Everyone doesn't understand how to give feedback. Everyone isn't comfortable giving feedback, especially if 2 people have given a perspective that's different from yours. That can be uncomfortable to give a differing opinion from 2 previous people, but that's part of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's part of believing in what you have to offer and owning who it is that you are and not being afraid of it. Embrace yourself and be comfortable with yourself. And if you see things differently, that's okay. And we can have differing opinions in a respectful manner. And your difference of opinion may be what we all need to be looking at, because what we were looking at may not be the best approach. And I'll share this really quickly. I had 3 cameras that were set up, and I was they were the exact same camera, same model. And I was trying to get them to all match so that when I went out to do some work, that I was getting the same look in my picture. And as I'm looking through the lenses, 2 of the cameras were the same. They had the same setting. So I'm going back to this 3rd camera and I'm trying to make it fit, make it match up. And I'm white balancing and just doing all these little tweaks. And I'm like, man, this thing just will not act right. And what I did, I decided to make an adjustment. And I said, let me change something else. So I went, well, long story short, what I discovered is that the one camera that had a different look was the one that the other cameras ended up matching. So the long camera wasn't the one that was wrong. It was the other 2 that had been set incorrectly. And I was trying to force that one to blend into the crowd. So we have to not be afraid to be set apart from the crowd, because the crowd isn't always right. The crowd isn't always right. Be comfortable enough to believe in what you know that you know. And if no one else is willing to stand with you, we have to be willing to stand by ourselves sometimes, because someone has to be the leader in an environment. We can't force it on people, but you have to believe in it enough that you're willing to stand alone, because what you know, you understand to be true, to be right, or to be necessary at a given moment. And there's always balance now. There's always balance. But don't be afraid that if you need to stand alone, you're willing to do that. Brenda, go ahead.
Thank you so much for letting me go again. I'm thinking we need to figure out how to give information without getting too personal, because I'm like that. So moving forward.
That's an interesting thought. And you know what? But that comes down with some people communicate that way. And that's the way that they share. That's the way they feel a sense of connection. That's the way that they feel they establish a bond. And if it's uncomfortable for any individual to share the personal details, then I would just say don't share it, and be comfortable not sharing those details. Share as much as you're comfortable with, because I tend to not share a lot about myself. I share some things, but I have people that I may have known for years that would be shocked to hear some aspects of my life, because I don't tell people everything that's going on in my life, no matter who they are. There's just certain things that I may not say or discuss. Not that I'm trying to hide it, but it just doesn't feel as though it's necessary. It doesn't add any value to what we're trying to do or build. And I hold on to it. So we have to figure out what makes us comfortable, and find the people who are comfortable enough to embrace who you are and what you are sharing. Because I've been around some people and it's like, wow, I didn't expect that. We just met in the line at the grocery store. I didn't expect to find out about your kids that that are going through whatever they're going through, that just got put into rehab. I did not expect that. But if that's what you need to share, I'm equipped to listen and be that listening ear in that moment, and understanding who we are and how we handle those circumstances as well. So thank you for that, Brenda. So is there anyone else that wants to give feedback? So Grace, you wanted to give feedback?
Yeah, that's why it's so wonderful to be here for all of us to get feedback from each other. And I love Brenda's point of view. I could feel you, Ami. Ami, your name means friend, I believe. And just the way you talked and about listening, it just had me, like reaching out and feeling you and feeling your uncomfortableness, because a friend does something. It's not words as much as doing things. And Brenda, I'm glad you pulled her out and encouraged her. But I saw both sides, just the uncomfortableness. So before I do my challenge, I just wanted to make sure and say that. And we're all growing in here. This is the space for growth.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I will say, Ami, I could feel what you were saying. And for me, I took it as that's what you wanted to provide to us. And you understanding and being aware of your headphones. And that's the barrier that you use to maintain your, I guess you could say, your peace, your comfort, the line that you draw, so that you're able to find your place of safety, I guess, to step back, to take that step back. And I think we all need to understand that about ourselves. What is it that we need when things get stressful, when they get uncomfortable? How do we manage and navigate those circumstances and do it in a way that's going to be healthy for us, and not allow it to become a crutch? Because sometimes we can do those things and it become extreme and it becomes a crutch for us. And instead of resolving some situations that need to be resolved, we run. So keep that in mind as well, everyone, that we do it in a healthy way. But I love that I could feel what you shared, and it made sense for me. Even though there could have been more, it just felt to me as though that was the most important aspect of who you are when you're trying to be friends with people, is your willingness to commit to the time with them with no distractions, because your headphones are an important part of your getting away. That's as important to you as your friendships, and your friendships mean more to you than being able to escape to the beautiful sounds of music that you may have going on in your headphones. So thank you for sharing that. And the pace and the pitch, all of that was good. It was heartfelt. Even though I know you were trying to figure out what to say, but you did say what seemed to be the most significant for you as it pertained to you being a good friend to people. So thank you very much for sharing that. So let's go now. I see that we've got Hakeem back. Hakeem, are you ready, sir?
Oh, I'm ready. I apologize. I couldn't hear the previous speakers. I know that one of my favorite wrestlers was on the stage, and after that, I couldn't hear anything. But we're here now, and I'm ready.
There we go. So it sounds like, so we could almost say Hakeem has some selective auditory attention, where once his speaker spoke, his favorite wrestler spoke, nothing else mattered.
The word you're looking for, I think, Mr. Brown, was synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yes.
That is one of them as well. There's
Okay.
another one, but
Okay.
synesthesia. Yes, I recall that one. But thank you for sharing that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Hakeem. Are you able to step inside?
Oh, you're hearing the birds?
Yeah. It sounds like the macaws are about to rip your ears off.
All right, hold on. Let's
Okay.
Because I got my son too. He always craving for my attention, so I had to step out and escape. But there's just no escape.
Got it.
Take it out the trash, cooking, taking care of the baby. It doesn't end. All right. I'm good. Saturdays are busy because my wife is a hairstylist.
Oh,
All right,
understood.
okay, we're good.
Understood.
We're good. I'm good though. I'm ready.
All right. So for you, we're going to give you the topic of awareness. Awareness.
You know, the last time I did this challenge, we spoke about being vocal. And I said, oh man, I wish I could have done that better. I wish I wasn't out of breath. So it was on me to be aware of pitch and pace, and especially power. The last question I had was to be aware of the power. So I like to be aware, especially situationally, when people are sharing intimacy. My wife, again, she considers me her diary because that's all I do is listen. So to be in a position of speaking is a little bit uncomfortable, but I like that. I like being uncomfortable. I like being in this space, and I like being aware of the people who are speaking and acknowledging them as well.
So what's your thoughts on that, Hakeem? How do you feel about that response to awareness as a random topic?
I could always do better, but I like freestyling. I get used to it. The more you get into the lion's den, the better you get, I think. So, of course, I feel like I could do better. There's so much more to say on being aware. And I probably said a couple of ums here and there. And I'm trying to avoid saying, because it sounds like you don't know what I'm saying. But really, it's just I'm thinking out loud. So I really believe that I could have done better, but I'm not going to beat myself over the head with it. So I think I did okay.
And you know what? When you said that you feel like you could do better, let me tell everyone this. It's okay that if you feel like you nailed it and that you did a great job and that's the way you wanted it to go, it's okay to say that as well. Just so everyone knows. So don't feel as though you have to always say, I could have done better, if you feel like you did the best job you could. And it represented you the way you wanted to be represented. Because we need to feel that also. So I just wanted to throw that out there to everyone. Brenda, go ahead and then we'll go to Mama B.
Thank you so much for the opportunity again. And you were definitely aware, sir. You're distracted. You are aware. I loved it.
And Mama B.
Yes, I liked it. And Hakeem, when you started and said last challenge, I was actually thinking that you're still just thinking. And then I realized that no, you're just pulling it into your presentation, and you just seamlessly did that. And I really like that. Of course, your 4 Ps, I mean, your pacing, you're saying that you're really busy in the background with the kids and all of that, the noise, but you sounded really relaxed and composed. So that was good. I like that. And then when you said that you think you did you said some ums, I didn't even pick up on that because I was so immersed in what you were saying. That interesting story that you put together there. So I didn't even hear the ums. So I guess it just goes to show that if there's substance in what you're saying, all of these other technicalities, they might just go over people because they are hooked on what it is that you're saying. So yeah, I actually liked it, Hakeem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. and yes. And you know, another thing as far as the ums go, ums aren't necessarily a bad thing. The challenge with ums is when they become a major part of your communication. That's when they become problematic, when they're distractions. When every 4 words there's an that's when you need to really think about, I need to figure out how to fix this, because it shouldn't be every other sentence or every few words that we're using ums. Ums can serve a purpose. Those filler words, I just say filler words, not even just and ah. There's different filler words that all of us may use, but when used appropriately, they can add impact. Ums can let people know that you haven't finished speaking yet. Ums, when used appropriately based on your tone and the timing, it gives people an opportunity to think, and it lets them know that you're still processing something. So just keep that in mind, everyone. Just a little note that ums aren't all bad just because they're filler words. It's a matter of appropriately using those filler words without overwhelming your message and diminishing the impact of your message to people. So let's see this. So what I'll say, Hakeem, and then we'll go to Grace since it's 1:13, is I love the way you weaved in the previous challenge to what you shared today. And just a reminder for you and everyone else how brilliant our minds are. And this is why, I love that Richard asked, what if we are smart and brilliant? Because you are. Everyone in here is smart and brilliant. And it's okay that our brilliance may not show up the same way it does for every other person, but it's there. And our brains have the capacity to go in and pull together all these pieces of information and create a constructive, well thought out, even though he didn't really get to think about it, expression of his ideas and thoughts on awareness. But if we get caught up on the fear, if we're worried about messing up, then our brain is going to focus on what could go wrong instead of figuring out, how do I grab all this information and put it together so that it makes sense when I'm speaking. And that's where the power of your pitch, pace, power, and pause, especially your pauses and your pace, coming into play so that you have an opportunity to think and process. You don't have to rush through it. And Hakeem, I thought you did an excellent job with your pitch, pace, power, and pause with the 4 Ps of expressing that. The timing of it was excellent. And you created a bit of a journey from last week, or not last week. It was, I forgot when it was. It was a little while back, but from the previous challenge that you did, bringing that all together, tying it into your wife and your family, and then back to the actual topic of awareness. So I thought it was a great job with what you did. And just keep practicing. Keep practicing, everyone. We keep practicing. And the more we do it, the easier it becomes. And you'll find yourself in situations where eventually that it doesn't matter what anyone asks you. what they bring up, you feel comfortable enough that you can provide an appropriate response, even if you don't have all the expertise, because you don't have to be the expert to provide an appropriate response when you understand how to navigate the situation. And sometimes the best response is to say, you know what? I'm not really sure about that at the moment, but if you give me a little time, I'll do some research and I'll get back to you. That might be the best response. And that says a lot about your character, that you aren't going to just be willy-nilly and just jump in and do anything and say something silly. And people respect that. But for some reason, we're afraid to say we don't know a lot of times. But if we don't know, we don't know. And we need to say we don't know, but let them know that I will find out. And then I will share with you when I do know. So great job, Hakeem. So let's go now over to Grace. Grace, are you ready?
Well, the longer I've waited, the more nervous I got. So I'm going to say hum.
Anticipation. It does that. And seeing we learn to manage that as well. Take your breaths, deep breaths, and focus on what you know you have to do. And
That's right.
During that waiting time, since you don't have something prepared, you could be saying to yourself, and this is for anyone, you could be reminding yourself, I'm going to focus on my pitch, my pace, power, and pause. Make sure I breathe. Think about that instead of thinking about, oh, I hope I don't mess this up. So that's how we make sure we have our mind in the right place and that we're preparing ourselves to do the work. So Grace, your random topic is going to be example.
Example. Example. There's so many ways to look at any word. And that's one of my gifts, is try to see different points of view. What is a good example? I want to not just be a good example in life and follow those with good examples. I want to find the people with not just better examples. I want to see people with the best example of how to live excellently. And so example is very important. And that word can go so many ways, but I want to be a good example. And I try to do that by modeling, like drinking some water so I can have brain power, and some Celtic salt, and taking a deep breath and pausing.
I see your mic muted. Did you just stop there?
Myself being aware is how I wanted to close it out. Yep.
Okay. Well, let me ask this. How do you feel about that response?
Well, I started off good. And then my brain I thought it was an easy word. I paused, I listened, and I thought, oh, I can do that. What a great word. And then my mind started going a lot of places. So that's my challenge. I've had a lot of concussions, and my brain will go a lot of places. And to do it in a minute, wow, that's extra challenging. So yeah, I'm laughing, crying, happy that I tried it. And maybe it's a good example of just the importance of practicing hard things, because sometimes we're going to feel like crying afterwards, right? For no good reason. But I see everybody in this room, and I see the hearts, and I hope all I do is for love, that I don't have to do my best. I just have to be the best at being a good example of trying and being brave and being kind. And that's not going to be perfect. It's going to be making progress. I love you. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Grace. And you don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. We give our best, but we don't have to be perfect. And that was a great job, Grace. And what I will say is, it sounded like that was a word that was custom made just for you. And I could tell that your mind began to wander, because you, in the beginning, though the first half of it, you were so poised and you were so clear on where you were going. And then there was this shift where you felt like, okay, I have 5 more things that I want to say about example. And then you began to try to figure out how to cram all of that extra information into that 60 seconds. And it overwhelmed you for a moment. But I did see I heard where you gathered yourself and you realized that your brain was trying to force you to do too much, and you pulled it back in and you settled down. And the chime threw you off. So everyone, don't allow the distractions as best you can, because sometimes we're affected by distractions in ways that others aren't. But if you can avoid allowing the distractions to throw you off like that, work on that. Practice on that so that the distractions don't completely throw you off where you lose sight of what it was that you were doing. I practice working through distractions because I know they're part of life. And I intentionally put myself in situations where there are distractions so that I can intentionally develop my ability to not be affected by those distractions. But it was excellent, Grace. I love the way you did that. Again, the way you began your the 4 Ps. It was excellent the way you did that. And you could have very well ended before you got into the Celtic salt. You could have ended after that first part when you felt like you were going to go off, you overwhelm yourself. You could have ended. Just because you have 60 seconds, everyone, doesn't mean you have to use 60 seconds. But don't rush and use 30 seconds because you're trying to beat the clock. Give as much as you have to offer. And if you don't have any more to give, then end it and move on and be okay with saying a little bit, because it doesn't always take a lot to have a big impact. So Mama B, go ahead. I see your hand. You're muted, Mama B, if you're speaking.
Okay. Yes, I'm here. um, Grace, it made me think of my mother when I was a young adult, and I'd be standing in front of the closet looking at my clothes, and she would just get be irritated watching me just stand there, just make decisions, try to make a decision. What am I getting? What am I wearing? And she would say, "Yeah, the problem is that you have too many clothes. Because if you had only 2 dresses, you would know exactly what to wear today because you wore the other dress yesterday, right?" And so, yeah, I did feel that that was probably what was happening here. You have so much knowledge and so much to say about the word example that you and me standing in front of that closet, trying to decide where to go. And and you said that you heard that about yourself, but what I will say about your good things or your positives, not that the other one was negative, but you know what I mean, is your voice dynamics, Grace. You actually presented the way you speak, your voice dynamics anyway, even when you're speaking generally, are really good. You're not monotone. And so that's what you did this time. Your voice dynamics, I really do like them. So that was great. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you for that, Mama B. And Rumi, I saw where you said you had some feedback, and I know that was earlier. Do you have some feedback now that you want to share? No pressure if you don't. I missed that.
Yes. When Queen Army was here, when she used the word headphones, I thought of it as a metaphor. Headphones could be used as a metaphor in an artistic way, not just like literal headphones. Headphones could be just something as a friend of yours. And what Brenda was saying and you were saying, I completely agree with you guys on the part where you say, sharing things that um, are not necessarily to be shared because this is social media. That information is out there. It could be used against you. So I completely agree with you guys. So yeah, just a few feedback here and there. Mama B, you're keeping an eyes on so many P's. I have no idea what you're looking at me. I'm already scared before my challenge.
Thank you for that, Rumi. Thank you for that, sir. And I love that, the fact that the headphones could be a metaphor. And here I am, I'm sitting there imagining her literally with her headphones in her hand, putting them on. And that's a great perspective. And this is why hearing from different people is so valuable, because they bring fresh perspectives that we may not have considered to a conversation that will allow us to see things completely differently and change the way we approach our interactions. So great point, Rumi. Great point, sir. Brenda, go ahead.
Okay, did you say Rumi was going to do a challenge? And if not, I just wanted to share a few things.
No, I didn't say that since it's 125. So we won't have time for another challenge today. But if Rumi wants to do a challenge, then I definitely will put Rumi down in case he's able to make it back next week to do the challenge, because we've got 5 minutes left and we wouldn't have enough time to be fair with the feedback for Rumi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know if I can share a few things.
So what I'll do is, so Rumi, what I'll do is if we can, Brenda, go ahead, Brenda, go ahead.
Okay. Put me on the timer because I won't. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the notes that I made, and I'll try not to talk too fast. I can't help it. Sorry. Poppy, Omni, Nukes, you wowed me so bad. Okay. Why is it hard for people to listen? Who determines one is not listening? What do we do if someone is not listening to us? Selective listening is very common in old folks and children. Okay. Why don't I share spaces? I don't share spaces simply because I don't want to, or I don't think that my audience will appreciate it. And if I do share a space, I will unshare it just to keep my timeline clean. I have some marriage advice. Love each other. Okay. And the last thing I want to say, I had more, but this is it. Are you trying to make a point or are you trying to make a difference? Tim? Signed, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brenda. I love the recap of what you heard from other people. And that's being attentive and recognizing what's going on. So thank you for sharing those. So what I'll do is, it's 127, and Rumi, I know you came up, you were wanting to do a challenge, right? That was your goal?
Yeah, anything.
Okay.
Colonel Tim.
So what I'll do is I'll put your name down so that next week you can be the first person who does a challenge when we come back next week.
No problem.
Yeah.
Whatsoever.
So we've gotten this thing down where we are wrapping up right at 1:30 because we're trying to be intentional about life. Everything that we do, we need to be intentional. And if we don't set a standard for ourselves, then no one else they don't have anything to live up to or to respect as it pertains to us. So this is trying to demonstrate that we can do things like this, because most spaces don't end on time. They say, well, it's time, we're going to close in 30 minutes. And then an hour and a half later, they finally close. So I'm grateful for the co-host and for everyone being so understanding when we have to defer to the following week to get some of your thoughts and comments, because this is intentional. This is very intentional, trying to close on time. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and just thank everyone that has spoken. Thank you all. And Edith, I know you came up and I really appreciate you being here. And I hope you can join next week so we can hear your thoughts, or for you to do a challenge if you would like. Shola, Lazolia, Jules, Chad, Richard, Kajal, Eunice, Enigmatic. We've got Democratic. We have Dorth's Joy of Creation. I was trying to say Joy and J at the same time, but Dorth's Joy of Creation. Jessica, Bella, Seba Batso, Billionaire Presh. We have Kachi, Jericho. We have Nika, Rosewood, Anna, Sky Blue Rain, Poetic Ethereal, Sela, Joy Tweet, and Beverly Foot. And I just want to say thank you all for being here, and your presence is greatly appreciated. And I hope that everyone continues. And to Brenda's point, who determines if someone is not a good listener? We don't get to decide that. The goal of today is for us to be attentive and to be aware that even if they don't appear to be listening to us, there may be a reason beyond them simply ignoring us. Because sometimes people are ignoring you by choice, but that isn't always the case. And we need to give them the grace as we assume the best intentions when it's people that we care about, and we try to understand the why behind this perceived distraction that may be going on, because they could be dealing with auditory exclusion, auditory fatigue, auditory masking, or selective auditory attention that's going on in those moments. And remember that this can be caused by a medical condition, stress, bias, or just simply fatigue. So always give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove to you that their intentions weren't good. So with that said, I hope that you all stay blessed and have a fantastic rest of the day, and hope to see you next week here in the Confident Speaking community. Thank you for joining today's episode of the Confident Speaking Space. Your contributions as a speaker and your presence listening live or on the replay are greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed the experience and want to show some love, feel free to visit the link on my profile and buy me a coffee. Until we meet again, I pray you have a fantastic week ahead. So be blessed, be safe, and be intentional about becoming a more confident and effective communicator. Let's get it. We gonna